Hello, everybody. Welcome to another installment of Biology in the Basement with your host, Mr. Andraco. Of course, also, we have to give it up for our man, Bonesy. Wow, they really like you today, Bonesy. This is Wednesday, so we are dressing in our blue pride for our Spirit Week. So hopefully you guys are doing so at home. Today we are going to be talking simply about the brain. We're going to go over really the basics of the brain. There is so much that we are learning, so much we don't know. So all we're going to do is just cover the basics of what we do know. And I've got a worksheet for you to finish up after that. So let's have a fact of the day so that we can get started. Maybe you've already read it because I put them right up on the board here. I think this is pretty cool. We've talked about the different names: shell shock, battle fatigue, PTSD, whatever you want to call it, where the intensity of war on the nervous system has caused alternate effects to the body, the mind. And so PTSD was a real thing. And of course, animals have been known to help people in times of crisis. And good old Smokey here is a great example and one of the first recorded therapy dogs. So let's give it up to therapy animals of all types. Tomorrow you'll probably see Dukes, right? Tomorrow is pet day. So I will try to lure Dukesy into the scene. He's actually chilling back there right now. But I'm going to try to get him to be a more forefront character in our lecture tomorrow. So wish me luck. You know what it's like to herd cats, as they made that a term. So here is your brain. Your brain is, of course, the main executive of your body. I'll talk more about that when we get into the different parts of the endocrine system. But your brain is your main executive, making most of the decisions. Up top, we deal with the voluntary stuff, the thinking, thought processing, senses, and stuff like that, where when we get to the lower parts of the brain, we deal more with the involuntary and a lot more of the primal or primitive, needs of our body for survival. As you saw in our comparison of different groups of animals, as we go from mammals down to birds and reptiles and things like that, they have less and less of this gray matter, where their bodies are more designed just on basic survival and reproduction. One of our adaptations is this gray matter that gives us the ability to imagine and plan and prepare, build, do things like that. So that is where we differ as mammals from other species. And then, of course, the human has an even larger brain. Not as big as the Neanderthal, as we learned. But, of course, brain size does not determine intelligence, so to speak. So there's that for you. So what I would like you guys to do is find page W27. It shouldn't be very hard, right? You guys just finished W25 day or last week and handed that in. So W27 is the next sheet. This will be your assignment to fill all of this out, and I'll make some corrections. No, I think everything's right on there. But if you'll notice, the back of W27, W28, though it's not labeled, has the exact same table here as it does here. Okay, so one of your assignments for today is going to be to complete this worksheet and send me a picture of it. Okay, now I'm not going to go over all of this. You guys can fill this in as you go, but just so you know, this is where that information comes from. Okay, so there's that. But I will talk just briefly about these different parts here because I don't want to make this video too long. And that is, right, we've got our cerebrum. As I said, that is your gray matter that is making all of your decisions, voluntary movement, thinking, problem solving, stuff like that. In the middle, you have your thalamus, right? As you can see, the thalamus is kind of like the relay center where everything coming up from the spinal cord gets directed to different places. And so the thalamus's job is to send information to different places. Oops, sorry. It's a duck. It's cute. We can look at it again, right? And its job is to, send those messages to where they need to go. Also, right, it helps with you retaining consciousness, right? When you get popped in the head and, you watch a boxing match or MMA, right, and the guy snaps his head back, and there is a break in between, your thalamus. That's how you retain consciousness. If there's not a signal going through the thalamus, you are unconscious, so to speak. The hypothalamus, we'll talk more about that, as it also is a gland, but when it comes to the brain, this is its responsibilities as far as just some basic functions, sleeping, blood pressure, stuff like that. The corpus callosum is a pretty interesting structure, right? We have left and right brains, and no, you can't just pull your brain apart. Your brain is held together by these fibers called the corpus callosum. It connects the two halves of your brain together, and that's how they communicate, is through those fibers. Your cerebral cortex, right? Anything that is the cortex is the outer layer, right? So, for example, this pop screen would be the cortex to this microphone, right? It is the outer layer. And so we know that the cerebral cortex, as we've been doing a lot of testing with the brain, deals with your sensory and motor, a lot of that stimulus response right on the outside. The cerebellum, which actually means little brain, that is this guy in the back. The cerebellum is what makes you not move like a robot. Usually this is the part of the lecture where we start acting like a robot, where it's like move, elbow, do this, and then I smash something off of the table or whatever, because we don't have these fluid motions if we didn't have a cerebellum. Right? We like to say that athletes are well known to have well-developed cerebellum, because for some way they can be running full speed, they can be fighting off a defender and catch a football and pull it into their body while still staying in bounds and falling over into the end zone for a touchdown. So that is some pretty fluid movements to be able to coordinate, and you can thank your cerebellum for that. And then, of course, the last one, jokes aside, there's nobody around to make any medulla oblongata from, which one was that? The Water Boy. One of my favorites. And so the medulla oblongata, right, that is the lowest part. That is your brain stem. Okay, so your medulla oblongata is this brain stem, which controls all of your basic involuntary functions, right? The reason why you breathe without thinking, your heartbeats and all of that stuff, is because of this brain stem dealing with those lower functions. Also coughing and other random things. Okay, so that is the end of this segment that we talk about the brain and all of the nervous system. So to do so, in your wrap up, I want you to do the front of this. You can skip the question nerves, and on the back I will give you two of the answers, because sometimes people struggle with this and I'm not around to help you through this. But if you think about the functions of the spinal cord, right? The function of the spinal cord first, right, is to send messages up to the brain. But your spinal cord can also make decisions, quick decisions, which we call reflexes, right? So that is the answer to this one. Down here, what are the two functions of the ear? Well, I didn't give you this away yet because I wanted to not overwhelm you with all the things that the ear does, but the two functions of the ear, of course, are for hearing, but they also have these semicircular canals that go in the X, Y, and Z planes, right? Because they help you to maintain balance. They contain fluids that help you with your balance. That's why when you spin too much, the fluid gets pushed in one direction, centripetal force, and that's what causes that dizziness. And so your ear is also responsible for helping you with your balance. So those are two of the answers that I remember people struggling with in years past. Email me with any other questions that you may have about this video. But that's it. So do this, take a picture of it on both sides and share it with me, and that will begin our wrap-up of the nervous system. So, and Draco signing off.